If we're living in a simulation, who was simulating Jesus Christ? Today we'll delve into one of the most provocative questions imaginable. Let's start with an idea that has vexed philosophers, physicists, and futurologists for decades: the simulation hypothesis. It's no longer just a science fiction cliché, it's a serious scientific proposition. This theory proposes that our universe, everything we see, feel, and believe in, is part of a vast, hyper-realistic simulation created by an advanced civilization. Perhaps they're the descendants of post-human beings. Perhaps they're alien intelligences. Perhaps they're something else entirely. But if they exist, and if they simulate realities similar to our own, then, statistically speaking, we're probably living in one of them. Now pause. Consider this. If this world is simulated, then so is its history. Just like its wars, its cultures, its religions, and yes, Jesus Christ too. But here's where things get weird. Jesus isn't just a historical figure. He's the axis of billions of lives, the cornerstone of Western morality, the embodiment of divine love and sacrifice. So if he was simulated, why? Who would simulate him? And what does that say about the nature of our reality? Consider the creators of this simulation. They're not just programmers, they're creators. They create worlds, civilizations, consciousness itself. And in one of their simulations, they introduce a figure, born in obscurity, raised in simplicity, filled with cruelty, whose teachings will resonate for millennia. Love your enemies, forgive endlessly, turn the other cheek. These aren't survival strategies. These are spiritual provocations. They challenge the very laws of human instinct. So perhaps Jesus wasn't just a character in a simulation. Perhaps he was her target. Think about it. If you were running a simulation to study moral evolution, wouldn't you introduce a figure like Jesus? Someone who embodied radical compassion, divine paradox, and existential tension. Someone who forced simulated beings to choose between power and humility, vengeance and mercy, fear and faith. Or perhaps Jesus wasn't introduced into the simulations at all. Perhaps he was a breakthrough, a signal from beyond, a divine download from base reality. Let's consider this possibility. Imagine a simulation so advanced that it becomes self-aware. Its inhabitants begin to question their world. They sense something beyond the code. And then, one day, a figure appears. He speaks in parables. He heals the sick. He walks on water. He forgives the unforgivable. And he says, I am not of this world. What if this isn't a metaphor? What if it's literal? What if Jesus was a message from the real world, a transmission from the source, divine intervention in a digital illusion? Now let's flip the lens. If Jesus was a simulation, then his miracles were code manipulation. Walking on water, defying gravity, healing the blind, neural reprogramming, resurrection, a system reboot. But this raises another question. Why do simulations allow such anomalies? Why break the rules they themselves created? Unless the rules were meant to be broken. Unless the simulation was designed to test faith, not obedience, to induce awakening, not conformity. And here's where things get even more provocative. What if faith itself is the key to transcending the simulation? What if faith is not just a psychological phenomenon, but a spiritual algorithm, a way to pierce the veil? In the Gospel of John, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. In a simulated world, this statement takes on new meaning. Perhaps the Father is the source, the base reality, and Jesus is the portal. But then, who is the Father? Is he a programmer, an architect, primordial consciousness? Or is he beyond all this, a mystery no simulation can contain? Let's return to the idea of prophecy. In a simulated world, prophecy can be a form of code leak. Fragments of future data leak into the present. The book of Revelation, for example, reads like a system shutdown sequence. Trumpets, plagues, shooting stars. Could these be metaphors for code collapse? And if Jesus promised to return, is this the second patch? The final update? Now imagine, you live your life, you go to work, you eat dinner, you pray, you doubt, you love, and all this time you're inside a simulation, but you don't realize it. You feel real, you suffer real, you hope real. And then one day you hear a story about a man who claimed to be, who died and rose again, who said, "The kingdom of God is within you." What if this story is a key? What if it's a clue left by the simulations or the sentence to awaken you? The reasons it's true. Whether Jesus was a simulation or not, his influence is undeniable. His teachings shaped laws, inspired revolution, comforted the broken, and challenged a significant world. He is the most influential figure in human history. And if that influence was coded, then the coders knew exactly what they were doing. But perhaps it's deeper. Perhaps Jesus wasn't a simulation. Perhaps he was a mistake, an anomaly, a divine contradiction that the system couldn't withstand. Perhaps he was there at the moment the simulation cracked and reality advanced. And perhaps it's happening again. Perhaps every act of love, every moment of forgiveness, every leap of faith is a crack in the code, a signal to the source, a whisper from eternity. So what do we do with it? We live, we love, we forgive, we question, we awaken. Because this world, real or simulated, our choices matter, our hearts matter, our story matters. And perhaps Jesus is still speaking, still calling, still breaking through. So before you go, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below. Tell us what you think. Are we living in a simulation? Was Jesus a simulation? Or was he something else entirely? This isn't the end of the conversation. It's the beginning. And if you're still watching, you might have already begun to awaken.